advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Remember 3 years ago, we were here for the Philippine Bird Festival. And now, Balanga has their own Ibong Dayo Festival. So we will always be here to support Balanga. Ang Balanga always hosts the highest number of water birds in the whole Philippines. Sana ay alam ninyo how to appreciate and conserve your environment. We hope all the success to the city of Balanga and happy Ibong Dayo Day.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Philippines Uncut. I'm your host, Buddy Kunanan. On this show, we talk about everything in the sun, and tonight's show, we're taking you to the great outdoors. We're talking about bird watching, which is a fast-growing sport and hobby all over the world and also here in the Philippines. In fact, bird watching is a good pastime because all of us can use it to appreciate the great outdoors and the nature and the world around us. And joining us now to talk about bird watching are two lovely ladies from the Wild Bird Club of the Philippines. To my right is Mikeli Mapua, and joining her is her brother, Ixi Mapua. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening. Hello. Good to be here.
Yes, no, pleasure to have you here. In fact, I've always wanted to feature bird watching, and it's good that I finally got a group from the Wild Bird Club of the Philippines to join us on the show tonight. Now, okay, let's talk about you ladies. Let's start with you, Mikeli. Tell us about yourself, your background.
I studied hotel management, so I have a diploma in Swiss hotelier management. I'm a food and beverage consultant, and on my off time, I'm a co-host for a little cooking show. Yeah, but whenever I have the time, whenever I'm not doing anything, I like to go out and I like to bird watch. And my best friend and my prime partner is my mom when I go bird watching.
Keep it all in the family, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, so Ixi, tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm retired, and I was looking forward to retirement because I said, oh, I can do so many things now. And when I retired, I moved to my house in Calamba, and I all of a sudden noticed so many birds that I had never seen before in my life. So I pulled out an old book that I had and tried to identify the bird, and it was impossible. The only bird I could identify was the kingfisher, you know. So I started talking about, there are these birds in my house, and through friends, I found the Wild Bird Club of the Philippines, and I became a member. And since then, where I live in Calamba, I have documented 63 species of birds. So now I know the birds in my neighborhood.
Now, when you say you documented them, you keep records, you identify them, you keep records?
Yes, I write down when I see them.
Okay, let's talk about the Wild Bird Club of the Philippines. How old is this group, and when was it founded?
It's about 10 years old, and it was founded by our president, Sir Mike Lu, who just, wanted a club where people could get together, like ordinary people, really, like from all walks of life, with all these sorts of interests, and we get together for a shared love of birds. And that's what I like about it, because aside from the fact that,
some of these bird watchers are really hardcore. You know, at the end of the day, you sit down, you document your birds, and you can laugh about the same things. You know, despite the fact somebody's more interested in rock or classical. You know, it doesn't matter. The birds matter, which is what's
What do you
nice.
mean by hardcore bird watcher? What is a hardcore bird watcher?
That's a hardcore bird watcher. That's hard.
Okay, would you like to comment,
Well-
Mrs. Mapua?
Well, I like going out. The funny thing was when one of my classmates asked me, Ixie, what do you do now? I says, I go bird watching. And then they go, isn't that for old people? I said, excuse
That's
me.
what I thought.
Yeah,
So-
excuse me, I'd like to see you do what I did. Last year, Michele and I went up to, we went up to Camp Sawa, which took a whole day to get to the campsite. It was 1 hour by jeep, 4 hours by pony. At the end
Wow.
of the 4-hour pony trek was a river crossing.
Wow.
And after the river crossing, there was a 3-hour trek.
My God.
Yeah.
I mean, so 1 hour by, so you're talking about a good 8-hour, 9-hour trip just to
Yes.
get to the site.
Yes.
We get up at something like 4 in the morning to start out because you don't want to be hiking when it's too late,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
And it's in Tuguegarao, the Peña Blanca mountain straits,
Protected, yeah.
protected straits, and you're not even bird watching it. You're just getting to your campsite, right? You start bird watching the next day, but along the way, you can't help it. It's a bird watching pace where you plod along and you still see things. And on pony back, we were like, look, 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 oh, look there, look there. Oh. So all the same, we were on, you know, looking
And
for
our
birds.
guide at the back is saying, Green Imperial Pigeons! And we were like, oh, okay.
I mean, it's a hell of a trip. I mean, 4 hours on a pony, that's a long ride, you know?
When we say like it's 3 hours trekking to our
Yeah,
base camp,
yeah.
we're not talking about flat lands. We crossed from pony, it was rough, arid terrain. Suddenly it forest. We crossed the river and we're suddenly in dense primary forest. And you're climbing at about 45 degrees over rocks and
Amazing,
mud and
amazing,
slippery stuff.
amazing.
And you know, you have to have a good guide. And thankfully, some of these hardcore birders are premier
Birders.
bird guides. Yes.
Birders, you can call them birders.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
for me, that's hardcore birding.
Okay, I know this is a silly question. Let's define bird watching. When you say, okay, we're watching birds, right? But is there something else and other aspects to it other than just watching? I mean, what happens exactly when you go bird watching? What do you guys do?
We watch them in their natural habitat, and we observe. It's nice to see. It's nice to see them just being themselves,
Yeah.
birds. I like to see them sing, and it's an extra plus when you see maybe a nest or a mother coming to feed the young, and other aspects of birds. And we have a book that says nesting sites unobserved or undocumented. And then when somebody sees one, wow, they can document it and help improve the Philippine records. Since we started, we have identified a lot more birds that have not been identified before or thought to have been rare or extinct. We've been
really?
able to see it.
Oh, really?
One of our members discovered a new bird, the Kalayan rail, and we're so proud of
When
her.
you say when the member discovered a new bird, what does that mean? Like previously, the Philippine government had no record of this bird until
Yes.
you guys came along and you spotted it.
This girl,
Really?
yeah.
Wow. Okay. What kind of support do you guys get from the government? I mean, I'm sure they appreciate the help that you guys are doing, right? For
Excuse
example, DNR or the PAWB, Protected Areas and Wildlife
Well,
Bureau.
Later on, when you ask our
Yeah.
president, we do get a lot of help from the DOT, DNR, when we have our annual festivals, no? But when we ask them for help in helping us protect a site that's near Manila,
Okay.
it's quite difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys are not into conservation, really. You're really into bird watching and keeping records.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, going back to the story of your member who discovered this bird, so pretty much you can say that your member, I mean, before your member recorded this bird, this species of bird, I mean, there was no awareness of this
No.
bird in the Philippines.
No.
Wow, that's pretty
And
important.
it's fairly difficult because a lot of the species do look the same. It
Yeah.
can be something as simple as a little faint black feathering here or a simple stripe down there
Yeah.
that differentiates them. So for her to have noticed that, wow, this bird's different, and for her to have really seen and documented and confirmed that it is in fact,
Yeah.
a completely new species, that is something that you really have to respect. especially when you consider she's about this tall
And this skinny.
and this skinny. She hikes. She lived. She literally camped out for however long, just for that bird.
You guys sound like mountaineers almost. I mean,
We like
hearing
the
your
outdoors.
stories.
We like the
And
outdoors.
okay, you go on like a 9-hour, 8-hour, 9-hour trek or ride, and you end up at the campsite. You stay for days there, or is it a day trip? You come back?
No, we stay about 4 days, 3 nights.
Wow.
Yeah.
You bring your tents and all that, and
Yes.
you cook, and wow. So it's really not just bird watching. Really is camping and
That's what's
adventure.
That's
Yeah.
what's nice about this hobby is that it's not just watching. You don't stay static. You move around. You get to see things. We've seen more parts of the Philippines when we
Since we-
started bird watching.
And definitely not for the week. I mean, when you talk about these long trips, these treks that you guys take, I mean, this you have to be kind of fit for this, no?
Mm-hmm.
You're ready to rough it up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's different from it. Also, you have to remember that different birds can be seen in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. You don't, like there are some birds you can only see in Mindanao, some birds you can only see in Luzon. So that's why we travel to hike up our life list.
Now, of all the hobbies to take, why bird watching?
Because
What is it about bird watching that draws you ladies? What kind of satisfaction do you ladies get from watching their fine feathered friends?
the best I can put it down to personally, it's like collecting Pokemon cards or figurines, right? Because it's this way. You get to see something beautiful in the wild that not everyone has seen. And you don't damage it. You don't hurt it. Nothing happens to it. But you can still say, I saw that bird, right? So it's sort of still there in your mental collection. And it harms nothing. What's sad is that the Philippines is probably it's second in the highest number of endemic species of birds in the world.
Really?
I think we're only second to Madagascar.
Yeah, and they have a hell of
Yeah.
a lot of species
Third.
of. I mean,
We're
Yeah.
third. Oh,
Madagascar is pretty amazing.
Yeah, we're third. And considering we're such a small cluster of how many islands, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
You know, in the sense that we can get a lot of tourism in just for these birds. The Philippines is the only place you can find a Philippine eagle. The Philippines is also the only place you can find a Philippine duck, right? So I think it's so important that we really nourish this, and that's what I like about it. We can, talagang roughhouse it out in the forest, but we're not hunting. We're looking, we're shooting with cameras maybe, but in the end, we harm nothing. We get a greater knowledge of something for ourselves and a greater appreciation for everything we have in this beautiful country.
It's not boring, like sitting for hours and watching birds just in a tree or,
It has developed my patience. I was a very impatient person.
I know.
Okay.
I mean, so am I.
Yeah.
I'm pretty impatient. So I can't imagine myself
But
for
you know,
hours.
ask my children. They get upset with me because I can stay for hours somewhere and just wait and look for a bird. And they're like, my 2 elder daughters are not into bird watching as these. Mom, let's go. Wait, I want to see. It might come back, or something like that.
It might come back.
Yeah.
So it really is a hobby that you have to invest time and, as you said, patience, and you really have to be dedicated to this thing. Huh?
And it's never the same. You never know what you're going to see.
I can relate, because I go on safari quite often, and as we say in the bush, every safari is different.
Yes.
But when I go on safari, I like to look at lions and hyenas and cheetahs and that kind of thing. I mean, those are pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
I see birds though, but when we're in safari, we kind of overlook the birds and focus on the big game. No, that's why hence my interest in where you ladies get the joy of bird. Where does it come from? No?
It's also in a way the thrill of the chase, because when you go on a safari for big game, right? In a way, they're not afraid of you because they know
Oh,
they
yeah.
can kill you.
We
they
gotta stay
can
inside the
bite you.
car. No?
Exactly. Here, you're actually sort of stalking your prey because here the birds are more afraid of you. So it's a thrill that you get to sit there and you're a voyeur to all this, beautiful, dirty, sexy nature, right? That's where I get my thrills.
Nice. Now let's talk about spots for bird watching. Where are your favorite areas? Where are the best places to go for bird watching? Let's talk about in and around the metropolis.
Okay. Very near for shorebirds is Manila Bay. The La Pachea, we call it La Pachea. It's the coastal area.
Yeah.
And when it's migratory season, my gosh, all the birds that are there.
Manila Bay.
Yes.
Where are they exactly? Like, would this one drive to a certain spot?
Yes. It's coastal road, along the coastal road before the entrance to the express, the the toll gate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's an area which a lot of us are very familiar with, and if anybody wants to come with us, they can get in touch with us and we can give them the map. Or we meet at a certain place and we go there.
Now you talked about migration, right? I mean, where do these birds migrate from?
They come from the cold, way up north, and to escape the winter, because there's no food and it's very harsh winter, so they fly down. They fly down to where it's warmer,
Yeah.
and they spend their winters here. A lot of them pass through Asian countries, and they have records, and we are starting to keep records also for the Philippines, especially the raptors. And they even go further down to Australia.
Yeah.
And then when it starts getting too hot, then they start going back. Like now, they're starting to go back.
What kind of species are we talking about here? What kind of migratory birds are these?
Well, there are raptors and there are water birds like the egrets. Even the tiny common kingfisher is a migrant.
Define a raptor. What is a raptor?
A raptor is a bird of prey.
Okay.
Basically, that's it. And one of my personal favorites, also a migrant, is the brown shrike. You see them a lot. They're called tarat. Some people call them tarat. Some people call them many other things.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter about the size. It's just this tiny little bird will slay and eat other birds or other
Frogs.
small
And
creatures.
yeah, they eat. Yeah.
It's a raptor, a little bird like that, huh?
We have a Philippine falconet.
The Philippine falconet
Is it? Yeah, it's about that big. They're these really evil, cruel little birds. They're still falcons. They're still raptors. Still
Yeah.
bird of
Where do
prey.
you see these falconets?
You can see them in Makiling, in UP Los Baños,
You can
up
find them
Makiling,
in Subic.
in
Along the
Subic.
trails.
Yeah.
They like to perch at the tips of dead trees. So at the tip, if you see like a furry little pom-pom on top, probably that.
You know, I have a question for you, birders. I live actually in the city, and I live behind a golf course. My house actually overlooks a golf course, hole number 9 actually, one of the golf courses. And you know, I'm a total bird layperson, so I always see these nice-looking birds. They're kind of white, about this high, with long legs.
Oh, egrets. Yeah.
Oh, those are egrets.
Yes.
And you said these are also migratory birds.
Yes, some of them. The resident egrets are the cattle egrets, the
Okay.
ones that are with the carabaos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Nice. Now, most exciting experience, your bird watching experience. Let's start with you.
I got to see the Philippine eagle in the wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
And those are endangered, no? I mean.
Yeah.
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 We hiked up to Mount Kitanglad to the sort of Eagle Point
Where is Mount Kitanglad for viewers?
in
Tell us.
Mindanao.
Yeah.
Okay.
Up in Mindanao.
Bukidnon. Yeah.
Bukidnon. And so it was also a long, hard hike up because there was lots of sucking mud up until about your shins. So you don't wear your fancy hiking shoes. You are Spartans, you know, you are gumboots. So we're going there and you're slightly miserable, you're sweating, there are leeches, and you're tired, and you're probably hungry. And at some point you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, I just want to go home. And so they're like, no, you just wait, sit here. So you're sitting there, and you see this little spot gliding in the distance. And the guy comes and he sets up the scope and quick, look there. Tick. And then you just see the most majestic figure gliding
Wow.
like it was the king of the skies, and you cannot
Miss it.
miss it. You cannot feel that unless, you know, it's just such a big sense of wonder.
I mean, I've seen the Philippine eagle in Davao. I mean, there's like a conservation, but
Yeah.
it's in like in a
Yeah.
big cage.
Philippine
But
Eagle
not
Foundation.
flying in the wild. Must be wow. It must be an incredible
It's
experience.
not the same because we've also been to the PEF, the Philippine
Yeah.
Eagle Foundation, and we've seen those eagles, and they look sad. Like
Absolutely.
they
It's
do the best they can there. That's
It's a
understandable.
caged
But
animal.
Yeah.
Sure.
it's just such a different look. It's like
Sure.
wow.
Sure.
You know?
How about for you, Ixie?
The same thing. The
you
first
were
time-
together.
No, I went to Kitanglad first. And I was sitting down. I was like her, exhausted. And I was sitting on the ground and leaning back. And right above me, it passed. It flew. And I could see it without
Wow.
binoculars. And I just went, my camera was beside
Like
me.
incredible wingspan, I guess, and just whoosh,
And,
flew
and
over your
it
head.
had something in its talons.
Wow.
And
Wow.
like I tell everybody, I'm a bird watcher first, a photographer second. Everybody asks me, did you take a picture? No, my camera was beside me. But I was like, you know, and then I got my binoculars and I looked and I almost cried because it was so beautiful.
I bet. Okay, let's talk about gear because you talked about leeches and slogging through mud
Yeah,
and wearing
leeches.
boots. Now, what kind of gear do people need to to go bird watching?
She's the geardo.
Okay.
Simple gear is a pair
Basic,
of
absolutely,
basic
yeah.
is a good pair of binoculars. Okay, and then of course a hat because it's hot. And that's about it. And if you're a new birder, come out with us, and we'll help you. And if you come out with us, you don't need to buy a pair of binoculars
You can always
because
share
the
with
club,
the group.
no, the club has a box full of binoculars, and we rent it for 50 pesos when we have a guided trip.
But it's always good to have your own, as in, so it's more personal.
Of
and
course,
you
Yeah.
of
know.
course.
And it's always a good idea to have a good pair of shoes.
Mm.
That's always a good idea.
By that you mean
Especially
what, trainers or?
Something
Hiking
with a bit
boots.
of a hiking boots could be, as long as it's got a bit of a bite. Depends really on where you're going
Yeah.
because again, depends on the kinds of birds you're gonna see. If you're going for waders, if you're just going to be like on the side of the road, put in a trainers. But if you're going to go
Right.
into the forest, you need hiking boots.
Okay.
Maybe a walking stick. That's always helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how does one become a member of the Wild Bird Club of the Philippines?
Well, we have a website, www.birdwatch.ph. No, log on to that, and then you'll see all the details, and then you can get in touch with us. We have guided tours almost every month, and in different places. It's very exciting because the last guided tour was in La Vista in
La Vista.
Quezon City, right?
Really? The subdivision?
Yeah.
Near
You know what they
Miriam.
found there? A family of scops owls.
Yeah.
Scops owls.
Yeah,
Owls.
owls. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was also good for the subdivision and the village because the guards also were introduced on how to take care of it and what to do if they meet up with one. And sure enough, after our members gave the guided lecture and a talk, the guard called up our member and said one of the baby owls had fallen.
Mm.
So he lived in that subdivision. So he went right away and he checked, and the guard was like in pain because he was holding the owl. Try not to pick up a bird, no?
Yes, yes.
But he picked it up, and you know they have talons. They have
Yes,
sharp
yes.
talons. No? So he said, "Where did you find it? Oh, take me to where you found it." And he looked around the area, and when he looked up, the parents were still there. So he says, "Just release it." And sure enough, it
It
flew
went back to
the
the
parents.
parents. And your trips, your guided tours, you have different varieties. So you have day trips. You've got some that last several days.
Mhm.
So I mean, especially for newbies. I mean, I don't think newbies are ready to go on a 9-hour trek and camping and all that. It's pretty hardcore, no? Pretty intense.
There are morning tours in like UP Diliman. UP Diliman is a nice place to go.
So close lang. I mean,
Yes.
like just for the half a day.
Yes,
Okay.
morning lang. UP Diliman is good. Saan pa? La Mesa Dam is the La Mesa Eco Park has become a paradise for us bird watchers because somebody says there's a red-bellied pita or there's an ashy ground thrush, birds which we could only find in the forests of Makiling. All of a sudden they're in La Mesa
In
Eco
the
Park.
Mesa Dam pala. Okay, ladies, come to the end of the first segment, and joining us later will be Mike, Lou, and Gina Mapua, your sister.
My
My-
cousin.
Your
My
cousin.
sister-in-law.
Okay. Would you ladies like to say something quick to the viewers before we go?
Come join us for a bird watching tour, and maybe your life will change.
You can visit us at birdwatch.ph.
.ph.
We'll be right there for you. So come on, join us, get out, watch the birds.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michele, and thank you, Ixie.
Oh,
Thank you very
our
much.
pleasure.
You're welcome.
Pleasure is mine. Guys, don't go away because more of Wild Bird Club of the Philippines when Philippines Uncut returns.
Yay!